Did you find that there was more questions that it was easier to solve by hand, or like what percentage of the test did you use Desmos on?
I will say maybe 20-30%, not that much.
Wow.
In system of equations especially, which makes it easier. I use Desmos to solve some equations. Desmos is good to solve linear equations. I wouldn't recommend anyone to solve quadratic equations with them if you are actually expecting that the program gives you two solutions, because it only gives you one, so that could be a problem if you need the other. But in general, I didn't use that much because some of the questions I felt like it was going to be a misuse of my time in putting something that was very evident, like in the module 1. Module 2, I think that I remember a couple of problems that required me to find the intersecting points of either two lines, or it was maybe a parabola with a line somewhere. There was an absolute value, things like that, right? So I used Desmos pretty much for those that I needed to see the intersection graphically. There were other problems that require you to maybe isolate one variable, and you have a question with 4 variables and you have to solve for the letter D, for example, right? Clearly that's not going to be on Desmos. The last problem was very interesting because it was the kind of problem in which you have a quadratic equation, kind of in disguise and more complicated than the usual, with a lot of factors here and there. So if you put that on Desmos, it was going to be a little chaotic. So from my point of view, the best way to do it was to expand things and then look for the coefficients that you have as A and the coefficient as B, and then apply the little idea, or well, the shortcut that we have, the sum of the solutions is negative B over A. And that was probably the best approach that I had for that question, instead of pretending to put that on Desmos.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that there was a quadratic at the end of module 2, because like 95% of the questions at the end of module 2 are quadratics or geometry. So to stick with the math, an international student said that there was no geometry on this test. That kind of raised an eyebrow. Did you see any?
No, yeah, I saw geometry.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how everything is in different places, but I've seen geometry in the sense that I think that the last practice test that I had with my students, we realized that there were more questions that we need to know how to find the surface, how to find the volume of some figures, right? And that could be complicated because that's clearly manual operations. There's no other way. But there was one interesting question. It was just like the volume of a cylinder, and they gave you the area right away of the base. So it was just understanding that the volume of a cylinder is the base of the area times the height, and your answer could be in 10 seconds instead of just overcomplicating things, right? Then there was another question about the circumference of a circle and what was the length of the arc, which was nothing but a proportion, or it was maybe 25% of the whole circumference. And then the classic geometry questions were involving Pythagorean theorem. There was one that I even saw on your TikTok, because one student actually asked me during the session about the complementary angles. Well, that's a little bit of trigonometry.
So it sounds like, though, and this is kind of good news, any geometry stuff that was tested today is concepts that they've been testing over and over again.
Yeah,
you know, there's nothing new in that department, which that's good to hear.